Captain Lisa Morgan looked out the large window of the Defiance bridge. Earth grew smaller behind them, a blue dot against the blackness of space. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This mission would likely be her last. "Captain, all systems are working normally," said Lieutenant Alan Peters from his position at the weapons station. His young face looked calm, but Lisa saw how his hands shook slightly. "Thank you, Lieutenant," she said. She turned to look at the 23 other crew members on the bridge, all volunteers, all aware they might never return home. "Is everyone ready?" Nods all around. They knew what was at stake. For 3 years, humans had fought the Arxian Collective, aliens who seemed set on taking over every planet they found. At first, Earth forces had held their own, but recently things had changed. The Arxians had better ships, better weapons. They pushed humans back further and further. Now they were at the edge of Earth's solar system. "Communications Officer Miller, any messages from Earth Command?" Lisa asked. Diane Miller, a woman with short brown hair and tired eyes, shook her head. "No, Captain. Last message was the go-ahead for launch." Lisa nodded. She hadn't expected anything else. Earth had nothing more to say. They had put everything into this one ship, this one mission. The Defiant was unlike any other ship in Earth's fleet. Built in secret, using technology that even Lisa didn't fully understand. Something about quantum fields and space-time manipulation. The scientists had tried to explain it, but most of it went over her head. All she knew was that the ship carried a weapon called Project Lightspear, and Earth's leaders believed it could change the course of the war. "Engineer Bennett, how's our new drive holding up?" Lisa asked. Carol Bennett looked up from her station. "Working better than expected, Captain. We'll reach Proxima Centauri in 3 days instead of 4. This was good news. The coalition forces, aliens, who had joined with humans against the Arxians, were fighting a major battle near Proxima Centauri. Reports said they were losing badly. Lisa walked to the center of the bridge and pressed a button on her chair. Her voice would now reach every part of the ship. "Attention all crew. This is Captain Morgan. We have left Earth's orbit and are now on course for Proxima Centauri. As you all know, our mission is to deploy Project Lightspear against the Arxian fleet. If successful, we may turn the tide of this war." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I won't lie to you. We don't know exactly what will happen when we activate the weapon. The scientists couldn't be sure. What we do know is that every one of us volunteered for this mission, understanding the risks. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that Earth will remember your courage." Lisa turned off the ship-wide communication and sat in her chair. Commander Gregory Williams, her second in command, moved to stand beside her. "Nice speech," he said quietly. "Though you left out the part where we're probably all going to die." Lisa gave him a small smile. "They already know that part, Greg." 3 days passed quickly. The crew kept busy with drills and equipment checks. They ate together in the mess hall, sharing stories about home, talking about what they would do if, against all odds, they survived this mission. Lisa joined them when she could, but spent most of her time studying the limited information they had on Project Lightspear. On the 3rd day, Lieutenant Peters called out from his station. "Captain, we're approaching Proxima Centauri, dropping. Out of FTL in 30 seconds. Lisa straightened in her chair. "All hands to battle stations. Shields at maximum." The familiar pull of deceleration pressed Lisa back as the Defiant slowed to normal space. The main screen lit up with the scene before them. It was worse than they had feared. The coalition fleet was in ruins. Ships broken and drifting. Others still fighting, but heavily damaged. The Arxian vessels, huge dark shapes against the stars, moved through the battlefield like wolves among wounded prey. "Oh no," whispered Diane Miller, her face pale as she looked at the screen. "How many Arxian ships, Lieutenant Peters?" Lisa asked. Alan checked his readings. 53, Captain, including their command ship." He pointed to a massive vessel at the center of the Arxian formation, twice the size of any other ship. Lisa nodded. That's our target. Captain, Diane called out. We're being hailed. It's the Coalition flagship. On screen, Lisa ordered. The face that appeared was not human. General Zane belonged to the Sarathi, reptile-like aliens who had been the first to join forces with Earth. His scaled face showed signs of injury and smoke filled the bridge behind him. Human vessel, he said, his voice raspy. You must turn back. The battle is lost. We cannot hold them. We're not here to join the battle, General, Lisa replied. We're here to end it. I need you to pull your remaining ships back to these coordinates. She nodded to Diane, who sent the information. Zane looked confused. What can one small ship do against their fleet? Trust me, Lisa said simply. You have 4 minutes to get clear. After a moment, Zane nodded. Very well, Captain. Whatever. You're planning, I hope it works, for all our sakes. The screen went dark. They're moving their ships, Alan reported. But the Arxians have noticed us. 3 vessels are breaking off to intercept. Lisa turned to Commander Williams. Begin preparations for Project Lightspear. Greg moved to a sealed section of the bridge and placed his hand on a scanner. A panel slid open, revealing a complex series of controls. Starting activation sequence, he said. Time to full power. 6 minutes. We need to get closer to their command ship, Lisa said. Helm, plot a course through their formation, maximum speed. The Defiant shot forward, its experimental engines pushing it faster than any human ship had gone before. The first Arxian vessel fired, energy beams cutting through space where the Defiant had been a second earlier. They're fast, Lisa noted with grim satisfaction. But we're faster. The ship shook as a shot grazed their shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Shields at 60%, Carol Bennett called out. Lisa gripped her chair as the Defiant twisted through space, avoiding most of the enemy fire but taking hits as well. The bridge sparked and smoked as systems overloaded. Project Lightspear at 80%, Greg reported. But Captain, we need to get much closer to their command ship for maximum effect. Lisa looked at the tactical display. The Arxian command ship loomed ahead, surrounded by a protective screen of smaller vessels. Between them and their target lay a gauntlet of enemy fire. Divert all remaining power to engines and shields, she ordered. We only need to hold together for another 2 minutes. As the Defiant raced toward its target, Lisa Morgan thought briefly of Earth, wondering if she would ever see it again. Probably not. But if their mission succeeded, Earth would survive. That was enough. 1 minute to optimal firing position, Alan announced. Lisa nodded and opened a ship-wide channel one last time. All hands, brace for final approach. Whatever happens next. It has been my honor to serve with you. She closed the channel and looked ahead at the massive Arxian command ship filling their view screen. For Earth, she whispered. The Defiant spun through space, dodging enemy fire as it raced toward the massive Arxian command ship. Captain Lisa Morgan held onto her chair as the vessel shook violently. Another hit rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from a nearby console. Shields. At 30%, Engineer Carol Bennett shouted over the noise of alarms. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls, trying to keep the systems working. Lisa looked at the main screen. The Arxian command ship was huge, at least 10 times the size of the Defiant. Dark metal plates covered its surface, with weapon ports glowing with energy all along its sides. Distance to target? Lisa asked. 8,000 kilometers and closing, replied the helm officer. But Captain, they've formed a defensive line. 5 destroyer-class ships blocking our approach. Lisa studied the tactical display. The Arxian vessels had arranged themselves in a wall formation, trying to protect their command ship. They knew something was coming. Lieutenant Peters, target their center ship, all weapons. Alan Peters nodded. Targeting, Captain, weapons locked. Fire. The Defiant's conventional weapons lashed out, striking the Arxian destroyer. Its shields flared bright blue under the attack. Minor damage to their shields, Alan reported. They're returning fire. Lisa gripped her chair tighter. Evasive pattern Delta. We need to find a gap. The ship lurched sharply to the right, then dove downward relative to the Arxian line. Enemy fire streaked past them, some shots hitting the Defiant's weakening shields. Captain, we can't take much more of this, Carol warned. One direct hit and we're finished. Commander Gregory Williams looked up from the Project Lightspear controls. 90% charged, Captain. Just a little longer. Lisa watched the tactical display carefully. The coalition forces, following her orders, had pulled back to a safer distance. The Arxians, sensing victory, were focusing their attention on the lone human ship daring to challenge them. There, Lisa said suddenly, pointing to the display. Between those two destroyers. Their formation isn't perfect. She turned to the helm officer. Full power to engines. Aim for that gap. Captain, it's too narrow, he protested. We won't fit. We will if they move, Lisa said. Lieutenant Peters, fire missiles at both ships. Aim for their engines. Firing missiles. 4 missiles shot from the Defiant, streaking toward the Arxian destroyers. The enemy ships tried to shoot them down, hitting 2. But the other 2 struck their targets, causing the destroyers to drift slightly apart. Now, Lisa ordered. Full speed! The Defiant shot forward, aiming for the small gap between the enemy ships. Everyone on the bridge held their breath as the gap grew closer. They're firing, Alan called out. Energy beams from both Arxian ships converged on the Defiant. The shields flared bright white under the assault. Shields failing, Carol shouted. The ship shuddered as the shields collapsed, and enemy fire struck the hull directly. A console near the back of the bridge exploded, throwing a crew member to the floor. Medical Officer Julia Ryan rushed to help. But the Defiant kept going, slipping through the gap between the 2 enemy ships before they could close it. We're through, the helm officer announced, his voice filled with disbelief. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Damage report? Carol checked her readings. Hull breaches on decks 2 and 4, emergency systems responding. We've lost our rear weapons array and long-range communications. Can we still deploy Project Lightspear? Greg nodded. Yes, Captain. The system is separate and still functioning. 95% charged. Lisa looked ahead at the main screen. The Arxian command ship filled their view now, growing larger by the second. Its surface was covered with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move, technology far beyond human understanding. They're targeting us with everything they have, Alan warned. Multiple weapons locks. Evasive maneuvers won't help us now, Lisa said calmly. Stay on course, maximum speed. The Defiant raced toward the command ship. The bridge crew watched in silence as death approached in the form of dozens of energy weapons powering up along the enemy vessel. We need another 30 seconds, Greggy said, his voice tense as he monitored Project Lightspear's charging sequence. We may not have 30 seconds, Lisa replied. As if to confirm her words, the Arxian command ship fired. Beams of energy shot toward the Defiant from multiple points. Without shields, the human ship was defenseless. Brace for impact, Lisa shouted. The first shots hit, tearing into the Defiant's hull. The bridge shook violently. Ceiling panels fell, and smoke filled the air. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim emergency lighting. Julia Ryan was thrown against a wall but struggled back to her feet. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but she moved to help an injured crew member. Hull integrity failing, Carol reported through clenched teeth, holding on to her station. Multiple breaches, losing atmosphere in sections 5 through 8. Lisa forced herself to focus. Time to target? 20 seconds, came the response from the helm. Project Lightspear status? Greg wiped blood from his eyes where a piece of debris had struck him. 98%. Almost there, Captain. The Arxian command ship fired again. More impacts rocked the Defiant. A support beam crashed down near the back of the bridge. We're losing structural integrity, Carol warned. The ship is breaking apart. Just a little longer, Lisa urged. She opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to deploy Project Lightspear. Whatever happens next, remember why we're here. For Earth. The Defiant. Close the final distance to the Arxian command ship. They were so close now that individual details of the alien vessel were visible. Strange lights pulsed along its surface, and massive weapon ports tracked their approach. 10 seconds to optimal deployment range, Alan announced. Light spear at 100%, Greg called out. Ready to activate on your command. The Arxian ship fired once more. A massive energy beam struck the Defiant head-on. Systems failed. Across the ship, the main screen went dark, then flickered back to life. Now, Commander, Lisa ordered. Activate Project Lightspear. Greg pressed his palm against the activation panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the bridge was filled with a strange light, unlike anything any of them had ever seen before. It wasn't white or blue or any normal color. It seemed to exist between colors in a space the human eye wasn't designed to see. What's happening? Diane Miller asked, her voice barely audible as a strange hum built throughout the ship. It's working, Carol whispered, staring at her readings. The quantum displacement field is forming. The humming grew louder, and the strange light intensified. Lisa felt an odd sensation, as if her body was both perfectly solid and completely insubstantial at the same time. Captain, Alan called out, his voice sounding distant despite being only a few feet away. The Arxian ship. It's changing somehow. Lisa tried to respond, but her words died in her throat as the light engulfed everything. The last thing she saw was the bizarre rippling effect spreading from the Defiant to the Arxian command ship and beyond. Then silence fell across the bridge. Absolute, perfect silence. Darkness surrounded Lisa Morgan. Not the normal darkness of space, but something deeper, as if light itself had forgotten how to exist. She couldn't feel her body. She couldn't hear the sounds of the ship or her crew. There was only silence. Then, slowly, something changed. The darkness began to thin. Shapes formed in the void. Lisa blinked, or thought she did. And suddenly she was standing on what seemed to be solid ground. Captain? A voice called. Lisa turned to see Lieutenant Alan Peters standing nearby, looking as confused as she felt. Lieutenant, she replied, her voice sounding strange in her ears. Are you all right? Before he could answer, more figures appeared around them. One by one, the entire crew of the Defiant materialized in this strange place. Is everyone here? Lisa asked, counting quickly. All 24 crew members were present, looking around with confused expressions. Where are we? Asked Communications, Officer Diane Miller. What happened to the ship? Lisa shook her head. I don't know. The last thing I remember is activating Project Lightspear. They stood in what appeared to be a vast, empty plain. The ground beneath their feet was solid, but had no color or texture. Above them was not sky but emptiness, neither black nor any other color. Commander Gregory Williams moved to stand beside Lisa. Project Lightspear was supposed to disrupt Arxian technology, not whatever this is. Captain, look, Carol Bennett pointed to something in the distance. A shape was forming far away, growing larger as it approached. Soon they could make out what it was, the Defiant. Or rather, an image of their ship, transparent and glowing with the same strange light they had seen before everything went dark. As they watched, the image of the Defiant met another shape, the massive Arxian command ship. When the two images touched, waves of energy spread outward in all directions. It's showing us what happened, Greg said quietly. The images shifted. Now they could see the entire battlefield. The wave of energy from the Defiant spread to every ship, Arxian and Coalition alike. As it touched each vessel, the ships went dark. Did we knock out their power? Alan asked. I think we did more than that, Carol replied, studying the images closely. Look at how the energy is affecting space itself. The scene changed again. Now they saw Earth, their home planet. The wave of energy had reached it too, though more weakly. Strange disturbances appeared in the atmosphere, then faded. What exactly did Project Lightspear do? Lisa wondered aloud. I think, Carol said slowly, it changed the fundamental rules of how energy works in our space. That's why all the ships lost power. But why are we here wherever here is? Julia Ryan asked. Before anyone could answer, the emptiness around them shifted. The plain where they stood began to transform. Walls formed, creating a space that resembled the bridge of the Defiant. though everything remained colorless and slightly transparent. "I believe," said a new voice, "that you have been pulled into what you might call a boundary space." The crew turned as one. Standing at what would have been the entrance to the bridge was a figure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but its body seemed to be made of shifting patterns of light and darkness. Lisa stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am a keeper," the figure replied. Its voice didn't seem to come from it, but from the space all around them. "My kind monitors the boundaries between dimensional spaces." The crew exchanged glances. Greg moved to stand beside Lisa. "Are you saying we're in another dimension?" "Not exactly," the keeper said. "You are between dimensions. Your device, what you call Project Lightspear, created a rupture in the fabric that separates realities. You and your vessel were pulled into this boundary space when the rupture formed." Lisa tried to understand. "And the Arxians? What happened to them?" The keeper's form shifted slightly. "The effects of your device spread across space. It changed how energy functions in your reality, but only temporarily. Most ships and planets will recover in time." "Most?" Lisa asked. "The Arxians were different," the keeper said. "Their technology operated on principles that your weapon directly affected. When the wave hit their ships, it created a resonance effect. Their entire fleet was pulled through the rupture, deeper than you were." "Are they here too?" Alan asked, looking around nervously. "No. They were drawn into a different space entirely, one from which there is no return." The crew fell silent as they processed this information. They had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. The Arxian threat was gone. "What about us?" Lisa finally asked. "Are we trapped here?" The keeper's form pulsed slightly. "Not trapped, no, but returning will be difficult. The rupture your device created is unstable. It connects many spaces that should remain separate." "Meaning what?" Greg asked. "Meaning that what you have done has drawn attention. There are entities in other spaces that have noticed the rupture. Some are merely curious, others are not so benign." A chill ran through Lisa at these words. "Are you saying we've exposed Earth to a new threat?" "Potentially," the keeper acknowledged. "The boundaries between spaces exist for good reason. When they are weakened, things can pass through that should not. Then we need to fix it," Lisa said firmly. "Tell us how to repair this rupture." The keeper seemed to study her for a moment. "It cannot be fully repaired, not now, but it can be managed. Your vessel, your Defiant, exists simultaneously in your space and in this boundary. It can be used to stabilize the rupture, prevent it from growing." "How do we do that?" Carol asked. "I can show you," the keeper said. "But there is a cost. To maintain the stability of the boundary, your vessel and its crew must remain here, acting as an anchor." Lisa looked at her crew members' faces. They had volunteered for a one-way mission, knowing they might never return to Earth. But this was something different entirely. "Is there no way for us to return home?" she asked. The keeper's form shifted again. "Some of you could return, a small number. The rest must stay to maintain the anchor." A heavy silence fell over the crew. Lisa took a deep breath. "I won't order anyone to stay," she said. "We'll figure out who goes and who—" "Captain," Alan interrupted. "I think we all knew this was a one-way trip when we volunteered." Nods of agreement came from around the crew. Greg placed a hand on Lisa's shoulder. "We saved Earth, Captain. That was the mission." Lisa looked at their determined faces and felt a surge of pride. "All right. But we need to send word back. Earth needs to know what happened and what might be coming." The keeper moved closer. "That may be possible. The connection between your ship and your world still exists, if weakly. You might be able to send a message or even a small number of your crew." "Then that's what we'll do," Lisa decided. "And those of us who stay will do whatever we can to protect Earth from here." The keeper's form brightened slightly. "Then we should begin. There is much to learn and little time. The entities I spoke of are already aware of the rupture. Some are moving toward it even now. As the keeper spoke, the transparent bridge around them became more solid, more real. Lights began to glow on consoles. Screens flickered to life. Your vessel exists in both spaces, the keeper explained. From here, you can see what happens in your world and in others. You can monitor the boundaries. Lisa moved to what would have been her captain's chair and sat down. The familiar feel of it gave her strength. "Show us what we need to do," she said. "We're ready." 3 weeks passed in normal space while the crew of the Defiant learned to navigate their new reality. For them, time seemed to flow differently in the boundary space. What felt like months of training with the Keeper had passed in the blink of an eye for those back home. Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the Defiant, which now served as their control center for monitoring the rupture between dimensions. The ship looked much like it had before, but everything now had a slight glow to it, a reminder that they existed partly in another reality. "Captain," called Alan Peters from his station. "The Coalition recovery vessel is approaching the battlefield." Lisa moved to stand behind him. On the screen, they could see a ship slowly moving through the debris field where the battle had taken place. It was the first ship to enter the area since the event. "Can they detect us?" Lisa asked. "Not exactly," Carol Bennett replied from her engineering station. "They can detect an energy signature, but they don't know it's us." The crew watched as the Coalition vessel cautiously approached. They could see its crew scanning the area, trying to make sense of what had happened to both fleets. "They're sending out drones," Greg Williams noted. "Looking for survivors, probably." One of the drones moved in their direction, drawn by the strange energy signature of the Defiant. As it approached, the crew could see themselves through its cameras, their ship appearing as a dark, silent vessel floating among the debris. "They can see the ship," Lisa said with surprise. "But not us inside it. Your vessel exists in both spaces," the Keeper said, appearing beside Lisa. The strange being had been teaching them how to use their unique position to monitor the boundaries between realities. "What they see is its physical shell in your dimension. Its energy, and you, exist here in the boundary." The drone circled the Defiant, transmitting images back to the Coalition vessel. "They're preparing a boarding party," Diane Miller reported, monitoring the communications from the recovery ship. Lisa felt a strange sensation watching people prepare to board her ship while she stood on its bridge. "What will they find?" "The physical space empty of life," the Keeper replied. "Your personal items remain, but you do not." The crew watched as the boarding party entered the Defiant. It was eerie seeing people walk through the corridors of their ship, examining the empty rooms, the abandoned personal quarters. "They're on the bridge now," Greg said quietly. The boarding party moved through what appeared to them to be an empty bridge, their lights sweeping across consoles and chairs. One of them, a woman with captain's insignia, moved to Lisa's chair and touched the back of it. "Captain," Diane called out suddenly. "I think we can communicate with them. If I route a message through the ship's log system." Lisa nodded. "Do it. They need to know what happened and what's coming." Diane worked quickly at her console. "Ready, Captain. You can enter a message in the ship's log. They should find it when they check the system." Lisa moved to her chair and began typing. She kept the message brief. "Project Lightspear successful. Cost higher than anticipated. They're coming through. God help us all." "Will that be enough?" Alan asked as Lisa finished typing. "It has to be," she replied. "We can't tell them everything, they wouldn't understand. But they need to be warned." They watched as one of the boarding party discovered the message. The woman called her team over, and they gathered around the console, reading Lisa's words. "They're leaving," Greg reported as the boarding party hastily made their way back to their ship. "What now, Captain?" Carol asked. Before Lisa could answer, a strange ripple passed through the boundary space. The Keeper's form flickered briefly. "Something is testing the boundaries," the being said, its voice urgent. "The entities I warned you about, they're beginning to probe the rupture." The crew moved to their stations using the new systems the Keeper had shown them. The bridge changed around them, screens showing not just normal space but other dimensions as well, places where reality operated by different rules. There, Alan said, pointing to a disturbance in one of the screens. Something's trying to push through near Jupiter. Lisa studied the readings. Can we strengthen the boundary there? Yes, the keeper replied. Direct your ship's energy to that section of the rupture. Greg worked the controls, channeling the Defiant's strange new power to the area around Jupiter. The disturbance faded, but another appeared elsewhere. They're testing for weaknesses, the keeper explained. Learning the boundaries of the rupture. How many of these entities are there? Lisa asked, watching as more disturbances appeared on their screens. Many, was the simple reply. Some merely curious, as I said. Others. The keeper didn't need to finish. The crew had seen glimpses of the others, beings of immense power that existed in spaces where the laws of physics were nothing like those of their home reality. Beings that would view Earth and its inhabitants as little more than interesting specimens, or worse, resources to be consumed. We need to send a clearer message to Earth, Lisa decided. They need to prepare. The connection is strongest with those who share a bond with you, the keeper said. Your leaders, your loved ones. What about global communication systems? Carol suggested. If we channel enough energy through the rupture, we might be able to broadcast a message widely. The keeper considered this. Possible, but risky. It would create a temporary widening of the rupture. Lisa weighed the options. If we don't warn them properly, they won't be ready when something does break through. Another series of disturbances appeared on their screens, more intense than before. They're getting stronger, Alan warned. Learning faster. Lisa made her decision. We need to send someone back. A messenger. The crew looked at each other. They had discussed this possibility before, the keeper having told them that a small number might be able to return through the rupture. I'll go, Diane offered immediately. No, Lisa said. We need your communication skills here. She looked around at her crew, her friends. Lieutenant Peters should go. His weapons knowledge will be valuable to Earth's defense forces. Alan looked shocked. Captain, This isn't a request, Lieutenant, Lisa said firmly. Earth needs to understand what they're facing. They need someone who's seen it firsthand. Greg nodded in agreement. She's right, Alan. You're the logical choice. The young officer straightened his shoulders. Yes, Captain. When do I leave? Now, the keeper said, moving toward them. The entities are growing more persistent. Soon, maintaining the boundaries will require all of your energy. How do we do this? Lisa asked. Your ship maintains a connection to its original dimension, the keeper explained. I can help guide him back through that connection, but it must be done quickly. A new alert sounded from one of the consoles. Carol rushed to check it. Captain, something large is approaching the rupture. Something different from the others. The keeper's form pulsed with urgency. We must hurry. The crew gathered around Alan. One by one, they said goodbye to their friend and comrade. When Lisa's turn came, she grasped his hand firmly. Tell them everything you've seen, she said. Make them understand what's at stake. Alan nodded, blinking back tears. I won't let you down, Captain. Any of you. The keeper moved to stand before. Alan, are you ready? He took a deep breath and nodded. Then follow me, the keeper said, extending what might have been a hand. And do not look back. The crew watched as Alan walked with the keeper toward what appeared to be a shimmering section of the bridge wall. As they approached, the shimmering intensified. Good luck, Lieutenant, Lisa called after him. Alan turned one last time to look at his crewmates. Then he stepped through the shimmering barrier and was gone. The boundary space shuddered around them. New alerts sounded from multiple consoles. Something's coming through, Carol warned. Something big. Lisa moved to her captain's chair. Battle stations, everyone. Our real work begins now. 6 months passed on Earth. The planet slowly recovered from the war with the Arxians. Cities were rebuilt. People began to feel safe again. The mysterious disappearance of the entire Arxian fleet was celebrated as a victory, though few understood what had actually happened. Lieutenant Alan Peters stood at a window in the United Nations Space Command headquarters in New Geneva. Snow fell outside, covering the city in white. Since his sudden return 3 months ago, he had spent every day trying to convince Earth's leaders of the truth, that the Arxians were gone, but a new threat was coming. "Lieutenant," a voice called. Alan turned to see Admiral Frank Wright approaching. The older man looked tired, with new lines on his face. "Admiral?" Alan replied with a nod. "Have they made a decision?" Wright sighed. "The Security Council is still debating. Some believe your story. Others think you suffered trauma during the battle." Alan clenched his fists. "We don't have time for debates. Captain Morgan and the others are holding the line, but they won't be able to do it forever. No," Wright said quietly. "I'm on your side, remember? But it's hard for people to accept. Other dimensions, boundary spaces, entities from beyond our reality." He shook his head. "It sounds like science fiction." The Arxians sounded like science fiction too, until they started destroying our colonies, Alan pointed out. Before Wright could respond, his aide rushed into the room. The young woman's face was pale with shock. "Admiral," she said, her voice shaking, "we're receiving strange energy readings from all over the system. And there's a message. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, all communication systems, everywhere." Wright and Alan exchanged looks. "What message?" the Admiral asked. "It's Captain Morgan's voice, sir. Everyone is hearing it." Alan felt a chill run down his spine. "It's starting," he whispered. Across Earth and throughout the human colonies, in homes and offices, on ships and space stations, people heard the same voice. Lisa Morgan's voice came through every speaker, every communication device. "We found something in the silence between spaces. It found us too. We're holding them back, but we can't do it forever. Earth must be ready when the silence breaks." In the boundary space, Lisa and her crew fought a desperate battle. The Defiant, transformed into something beyond a normal ship, moved through the rupture, reinforcing weak points and pushing back against entities trying to break through. "Captain, the broadcast worked," Carol Bennett called from her station. "The message reached Earth." Lisa nodded, her face showing exhaustion. For months they had worked without rest, learning to use the ship's new abilities, becoming one with the boundary space. The Keeper remained with them, guiding them, but even the strange being seemed strained by the constant attacks. "They're getting stronger," Greg Williams warned, monitoring a section of the rupture near Mars. "This one is pushing harder than the others." The crew could see it on their screens, a massive disturbance in the fabric of reality. Whatever was trying to come through was unlike anything they had encountered before. "Divert more energy to that section," Lisa ordered. The Defiant responded to her command, channeling power to strengthen the boundary. The Keeper appeared beside her, its form flickering more than usual. "They sense your world now," it said. "The largest ones are drawn to the energy of your planet, your sun." "Can we stop them?" Lisa asked. "Not forever," the Keeper replied. "But perhaps long enough." "Long enough for what?" "For your people to prepare, to find a way to protect themselves." On Earth, chaos erupted following the mysterious message. People panicked, governments scrambled to respond. In New Geneva, the Security Council called an emergency meeting. Alan stood before the assembled leaders, Admiral Wright at his side. "You've all heard Captain Morgan's message," Alan said. "Now do you believe me?" The council president, a stern woman from Brazil, leaned forward. "We believe something is happening, Lieutenant. But what exactly are we facing?" Alan took a deep breath. "Entities from other dimensions, being from realities where the laws of physics are different from ours. Some are just curious, but others—" He paused. "Others see our reality as something to be consumed." "And Captain Morgan and her crew are fighting these things?" asked the representative from China. "They're holding the boundaries," Alan explained, "using the Defiant and its changed form to strengthen the rupture that Project Lightspear created. But they can't do it forever." "What do you suggest we do?" the president asked. We need to adapt Project Lightspear's technology, Alan said firmly. Create a defense system that can detect and respond to breaches in our reality. Wright stepped forward. We've already begun work based on Lieutenant Peters' information, but we need more resources, more scientists. The council members looked at each other. Before anyone could speak, an aide rushed in. Madam President, he said urgently, we're receiving reports of strange lights appearing over major cities worldwide. In the boundary space, Lisa and her crew felt the shift. Something had changed. Captain, Diane Miller called out, the largest entity is pushing through. We can't hold it back anymore. Lisa looked at her tired crew, then at the Keeper. What happens if it breaks through? It will create a stable passage between its reality and yours, the Keeper explained. Others will follow. Lisa made a quick decision. Then we go through first. We take the Defiant into its reality. The crew stared at her in shock. Greg found his voice first. Captain, that would be suicide. Maybe, Lisa agreed. But it might buy Earth more time. And maybe we can find a weakness, something that will help Earth defend itself. Carol studied her console. The Defiant has changed. It might be able to survive in another reality now. And we've changed too, Julia Ryan added quietly. The medical officer had discovered that their long exposure to the boundary space had altered them in subtle ways. They were no longer fully human. The Keeper's form pulsed. It is possible, but there would be no returning. Lisa looked at her crew. We always knew this was a one-way mission. Any objections? They looked back at her with determination. None spoke against the plan. Then let's do it, Lisa said. Diane, send one more message to Earth. Let them know what we're doing. As the entity pushed harder against the rupture, the Defiant moved toward it rather than against it. The ship, glowing with strange energies, accelerated directly at the weakening point in reality. On Earth, people watched in awe and fear as lights formed in the sky above every major city. The lights grew, taking shape, becoming doorways to somewhere else. Then, around the world, communication systems activated again. Captain Lisa Morgan's voice reached every person on the planet. This is Captain Morgan of the Defiant. We are engaging the entity directly. Earth, prepare yourselves. We'll hold them as long as we can, but you must be ready. Remember us. In New Geneva, Alan Peters felt tears on his face as he listened to his captain's final message. Admiral Wright placed a hand on his shoulder. What do we do now? The Admiral asked quietly. Alan wiped his eyes and straightened his shoulders. We do what they taught us. We fight. Above them, through the window, they could see the lights in the sky flickering as the Defiant and its crew charged into the unknown, breaking through the silence one last time.